Hey guys, Matt here from Seeds of Awareness. Welcome to the Awakening series. This is episode 1 and I'll be talking to you about the ego. Now many people perceive the ego as being a mostly negative thing, but that's not necessarily true, and as I'll explain in a little bit, it can become self-destructive if we over-identify with it, but it doesn't necessarily have to be that way. So I define the ego, I perceive the ego as basically being all of the roles and titles and beliefs that we have given ourselves, or our family, our culture, and our wider social environment has given ourselves, that make up our personality. So for me personally, my name's Matthew, I'm an Australian, I'm a father, I used to play sport, I still play sport, I'm a musician, I've got certain beliefs around the world, I've got certain beliefs around myself, many of which are a result of my culture and my customs and my upbringing here in Australia. But all of this really is illusory. It's not actually who I truly am. See, I believe that who we truly are there's a deeper essence to us, that is a spiritual essence, that is eternal, that survives the death of the physical body, that survives the many changes of the outer persona, the ego persona, and that's that silent witness that's watching all of the changes. And so the personality, the ego personality, is always changing. It updates, it changes as we get older, as we travel, as we meet new people, as we learn about new things, and that's the proof that it's temporary and illusory. See, I could go to a different country right now, well, not right now because we're in lockdown, but for the sake of making a point, I could go to a different country, I could absorb myself in a different culture, give myself a different name, learn a different language, get a different education, and I would have a totally different personality. Especially if I was brought up in a different country, I would have a totally different ego personality than I do having been brought up in Australia. And you probably all have had those examples of when you're a kid or a teenager and you're watching a movie and there's a character that you really resonate with in the movie, and you're just like, I'm going to adopt all of those traits. I'm going to dress like that person. I'm going to act like that person. And basically what you're doing is just downloading a different ego personality into you. And that's why things such as education, things such as Hollywood and the media have such an impact on our impressionable young minds when we're trying to form our blind spots like a sledgehammer. And the world can become scary and painful, and the world can be threatening, which makes us kind of like try to guard ourselves even more, close down our emotions, and try even harder to be more willful in terms of achieving what we deem as success. And often when we're identified with the ego, what we deem as success, or what we deem as things that make us fulfilling, are very material based things, such as money, such as chasing after sex, such as eating junk food, such as drugs, such as partying. The list could go on, which there's nothing necessarily wrong with having these experiences and enjoying them, but when we're relying on them to give us that fulfillment, it means we're identified with the ego. And so, as I said, what we really need is to purify the ego, to make the ego exist on a foundation of higher morals and higher principles. But that can only occur by connecting the ego, linking it with the deeper spiritual essence of ourselves. And that can only occur if we have that spiritual awakening and do the work to remove all the blockages that are blocking the ego from linking with our spiritual self. And that can take many, many years of work. And it's something I've been working on for probably about, the better part of 10 years. And I still have things in the way. I still over-identify with my ego in certain instances in my life, and I'm constantly working through the blockages. It's kind of like a lifelong process, because any traumas, any negative conditioning, any negative beliefs, programs, all these things that we have within us, hiding within our shadow, if we don't confront them, if we don't do the work to peel them back bit by bit, we can't link the ego personality with our deeper spiritual self. But that's something I'll talk about in another video, because I don't want to keep this going too long. But to wrap this up, it's important not to perceive the ego as a bad thing. The ego is perfectly fine. The ego is just what it is. It just gives us that identity, but we don't want to be over-identified with it so that it does become harmful and self-destructive. So hope that makes sense, and I hope you've got some value out of this, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.